But that's the problem, Terry. And like the one thing I hope from this is that integrity is obviously what people speak about. I'm tired of referees are human. They make mistakes. They have unconscious and conscious bias, as you've kind of said, where you alluded to the example about the referees. Need to stop looking at referees as angels. Very even when you deep what's gone on with David Coote and what you said there in that. They were the governing bodies that were aware of what's going on and they tried to cover it up. The wider discussion has to be around integrity of referees and knowing about conscious and unconscious bias. Because again, if I think that Guardiola is a moany bastard, I'm obviously going to be a lot more harsher on City. And the same goes for everyone else. Need to stop looking at referees as some sort of angel entity and need to hold them to high regards. But as we know, referees get rewarded upwards. I mean, I don't know for Coote because this is a bit unique, but it's a reality where he'll just go away until kind of this blows over and he'll be back refereeing in no time, man.
Yeah, that's
for me. Yeah, I just think people just need to stop moaning about referees altogether. Yeah, like referees are gonna have these. They're not gonna like people. Do you know what I mean? We're expecting. You kind of alluded it today, yeah, Goody. Yeah, you said we need to stop holding these referees like they're angels or something. They're human beings. Yeah, the referees get so much shit. Yeah, off fan bases. Sometimes they can have a completely fine game, and a fan base is just going to cook them. Yeah, they'll cook them online. They might get cooked off other people, whatever. Yeah, of course that's going to be in the back. They're constantly getting agendas against them. Maybe they are gonna be like that. Like at the end of the day, right? I'm not being funny. Yeah, but if Klopp has called this guy, so apparently Klopp called this guy a liar. Yeah. So you're calling someone a liar, yeah, which is not a particularly very nice thing to say about someone. You call him a liar. I called him all this sort of stuff. Of course, he's not going to like him. Like, this is just football, man. I mean, come on, like, what's going on here? Like,
shot himself in the foot is the German stuff.
No, but I've already said that. He shouldn't have said that. But like,
that's why I think Coote shot anyone that.
Yeah, but you're talking about like integrity of referees.
No, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I'm just saying with him, the racist thing, you ain't got a leg to stand on.
He's done. I've already said he's going to be fired. But I'm talking about going forward, yeah? Because that's what people want to talk about. These referees, they're going to not like, some referees are not going to like Pep. Some referees are not going to like Slot. A lot of referees probably won't like Arteta because he's a knob. Like, this is just what happens, man. Like, bro, Fergie would have got it. Yeah, he got it. Like, that's just football, man. It's referees have those views.
I think the thing is, LP, I understand what you're saying. I understand that there's players that will scream at refs as well and get like sending offs for it or bookings from it. But that doesn't influence that. Like players screaming at the referee doesn't influence other results, and that's what the kind of thing is now here. It's like one, he's been unprofessional because of what he said. He's been caught on camera as a silly boy, but now he's going to be properly looked at. If they just say, "Look, he's been given a warning. He shouldn't be swearing on camera and saying what he said," but he is going to carry on every single game now. They're going to be like, "Oh, it was Coote again. What's that going to do?" So he's done now in the Premier League.
By the credibility, he shot himself.
He shot himself. And I think we need to look now at European referees coming over. Like, I really do now. I don't know why we don't.
It's not going to make a difference, Dan. It's not going to make a difference.
What do you mean?
In terms of the integrity side, it's going to make no difference whatsoever. Because if a manager calls a French referee a liar and screams in
No.
Better refereeing decisions.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. The officiating's got to improve.
Yeah, but
there's a direct contrast with foreign referees and the English refs.
We also need to look at how come is it just completely random that all our referees are dead? Like,
is it random?
But LB, this is the point of the conversation. I know you say stop moaning about referees, and I understand it in some regards, and I've been saying this for years. I think football fans, there needs to be this balance. You know, your team might lose a game. You can focus on how bad your setup was, how terrible the substitutions were. Doesn't mean you should ignore the one or two terrible decisions made by a referee. I think you can have that widespread conversation. The problem is with this is that where are the checks and balances? Where is you're talking about a game, by the way, that now generates billions of pounds of income. So we're not talking about some minuscule little sport. This is an important industry as well as a sport that impacts millions of people's lives on a personal level and on a financial business level.
Now, jobs.
I think you can have independent review. I think you can have independent reviews in this. You can assess how they're doing the training. I think you need people looking into the impartiality side of things, because if we just have the mindset in this world of take any industry and just say, do you know what? I know all the current builders in England are rubbish and they mess up everybody's houses, but let's just stop moaning about it because it's never going to change. If we just sit here and say, do you know what? When it comes to the refs, let's not suggest any way of making it better. Let's not challenge anything they're doing. I agree, by the way, with the two things that I agree with is that we should abuse them less And fans have got to stop making this about their club only. I always say to Arsenal fans, you're right to call out some of the terrible inconsistencies. But as soon as you start saying it's only us who gets affected, you lose everybody in the argument. You've got to stop making it tribalistic. So there's areas, but I think if we just ignore what referees are doing, this is just going to continue. I don't think there's no smoke without fire. And for me, the level of inconsistencies that have developed in the last 5, 6, 7 years have been highlighted because VAR now exists. And we think, well, you can't keep making these mistakes when you've got video assistance to help you. I think it does stem to a little bit more.
Even the way VAR in this country is implemented, Terry.
But yeah, everything. There's just little things where I just feel like there's some real biases here that need to pull out. And I agree with bringing in foreign refs, but I'd go one step further. I'd rotate referees out every 2 to 3 years. So you get really good French referee, comes in, does a great job. Boom. End of each 3-year contract, he goes elsewhere. You bring someone else in. If you keep rotating refs in and out the league, the chances of them building up a real disdain for a particular manager or a club is reduced. You have an independent body that comes in and reviews what's going on. Like, you made 2 bad mistakes this weekend. What have the PGMOL done to train that person, to hold them to account? They interviewed them. There's standards you could put in place. And again, we're talking about an industry that's worth billions. So I think it's worth having these checks and balances. There's loads that can be done to ensure that refereeing is of the highest standard possible. Not perfect, because they are human beings. But I think we can all agree, if we put a hand on our hearts and we're honest, that the lack of consistency that we see, I just don't believe it's incompetence. I believe it's bias coupled with cover-up after cover-up. I'm really getting to that point. And I don't think it's against Arsenal or Liverpool directly. We've seen it against Wolves and Forest and whoever else.
How are you going to prove that, though? How are you going to prove that?
Investigations. How you prove anything? You need to let other people get involved.
How are you going to investigate that? So you're saying if a referee has a bias against a team, right, or hates a team, how are you going to investigate that? You're going to interrogate him and say, "Do you hate United?" But
maybe not in those words. I mean, if you take the old industry I was in banking, there are independent bodies like the FCA that will come in and investigate and do checks and balances to make sure that you're following all the rules and regulations. Now, there certainly has to be more that can be done than just Howard Webb managing them.
This is why
it's all too closed shop. You need to, and this is why I've said for years, I think we need an independent regulator across football at large. If there was an independent regulator in football, you think City are innocent, right? About their charges.
Well, they say they're innocent, so
okay. Yeah, but if there was an independent regulator that was checking on clubs' behaviour as a matter of course over the last 15 years, you would either never have been able to. If you're guilty, you'd never been able to have cheated that much. You'd been caught earlier, and if you were innocent, you would never be falsely accused.
Okay, yeah, but
independent body investigating it.
But what I'm not getting is here, right? Yeah, so you can have an investigator, right? You can investigate a referee. But how is that going to prove that you've got a bias? What about if he just says, maybe I just made a mistake against United twice? Does that mean he's got a bias against United?
Example being, the reports are now suggesting that the PGMOL knew about this video. An independent body would be able to come in, go through what they've discussed, go, well, we've found this video that you've got. You've not made it public. You haven't spoke to Liverpool. You're still letting him do VAR, but you've taken him off games. An independent body could come in and manage that situation better. What they've done is covered it up and hid that problem.
No, but that's a completely different story. I agree with what you're saying. I'm talking about the referees. How are you going to be able to prove that a referee's got a bias against your club, my club, us? How are you going to be able to prove that?
But again, I'll give you an example as to how. When we watch Michael Owen on TV challenging Howard Webb, we can all tell that it's pre-selected questions that Howard Webb knows how to answer, and there's no challenge on it. For me, we as fans, right? And I've seen City fans do this when it comes to the charges you're facing. I've seen fans do this when it comes to refereeing decisions. I think fans as a collective, we sit there and ask much better questions and go, hang on a minute, why wasn't these 4 or 5 questions asked? Why weren't these examples put up to challenge why what Howard Webb said is wrong? You don't have to do that on camera, by the way. You do this behind the scenes. Just the notion of it happening will push for the referees and the people that run them to be more honest, to open up, to take the help that they need. And I just think that sometimes when it's a closed shop, when nobody's really watching, when you allow, in my old industry, it was called Spanish customs to come in place. The amount of rules that used to get broke in the financial world before 2008 that were just Spanish customs that people did. The regulators didn't care. The government didn't care. Then the world went bankrupt. and everywhere got investigated, and the amount of things that everybody was doing wrong that they thought was okay because there was nobody regulating it properly. Regulation is so important in industries this size.
I just don't understand how you're proving bias. I'm still not getting any. I'm not getting any understanding of how
by investigating to make sure that when a referee is making a mistake, to make sure that he's being challenged, he's being questioned, he's being trained.
Yeah, but that doesn't prove bias. If I'm a referee and I make a mistake in a United game, right? Does that mean I'm biased?
No, but if there's no challenge on you and no one outside of the PGMOL ever gets access to how you're being spoken to, reprimanded, and trained.
Completely agree. But that's not
again. I'm not
biased, though, is it?
I'm giving you an opinion that I think bias exists. The only way we'll find if it exists is to let outside people come in and view what you're doing. Because without letting anyone else come in and check, you can't prove it either way. But surely, if independent people come in and go, do you know what? Actually, I know Gooners think that there's bias against them, but the level of training they're getting, the scrutiny, the discipline, the punishments these referees are going through, we are independently looking at this, think that these are honest, genuine mistakes. I think football fans have said, you know what? At least it's being looked at. When it's all in-house, it's all covered up, the media helping to protect it. That's where conspiracy comes from.
It doesn't look good, Terry. Like I think we're kind of conflating the two. I think naturally, if you like in the same way if a footballer makes a mistake on a coaching front, you know, the manager will tell them what they've done. I think on one hand, you know, refs do make mistakes. You can kind of teach them to not let that happen again. Obviously, having a background in talent identification, you can't necessarily prove bias, but you've got conscious bias, you've got non-conscious bias, you've got confirmation bias. That's basically if I think Bukayo Saka's a good player, I'm waiting for someone that agrees with me. I would say a case of making referees aware of these things or just start training to kind of avoid that. Because if all four of us started refereeing, I'm sure we all look at football slightly differently.
But bro,
Dan might think something's a foul and I might clamp someone. So I'd say it's just that. Really,
bro, I was a referee. If a fucking manager, sorry to swear, but if a manager's like getting onto you, you might, fuck you, man. Like if it's 50-50, I'd give it to you, bro.
Cool. Where he's gone left is obviously we've all agreed with what he's saying about the German stuff. You can have that. If you think someone's
but the thing is, LB, if that's how you view it, so you just said it there, right?
You still have to make the right decision.
The point is this, right? Let's just say you're a referee at a higher level and you're having your one-to-one. I'm sure they have one-to-ones like all jobs. And you turn around in your one-to-one and you say, do you know what? I didn't give that 50-50 to Joe Bloggs because the manager called me a dickhead and I thought, fuck him. Then when an independent person comes in and reviews it, they're like, there's no reprimand in there for that bias that you showed.
No. Wait a sec, Terry. How can you prove that was a bias then? I'm not going to come out and say I didn't. I'm not going to come out and say I didn't give you that decision because you called me a knob. Like, I'm just going to not give it you. If it's a 50-50, I can justify it.
But if David Coote never made this video, the Premier League wouldn't have taken him off of Liverpool games. The point is, what's now coming out is they know about this bias and they've done very little about it. The point is, we don't know what we don't know, but we need independent people to go in and check that they're doing the right thing.
Like you said, we conflate. I agree with everything you're saying. I'm talking about you're not going to be able to prove bias on an individual referee level because no referee is going to come out and say, you know what, mate? Yeah, I hate United. Yeah, I'm a City fan. I hate United. I hate them. They're not going to do that.
Maybe it will remove the bias. Maybe right now, referees for a long time have felt like, do you know what, I can kind of get away with doing what I want because I get protected by the PGMOL. If they now knew that they're going to be looked at independently, more things are going to be made public, maybe they'll go, do you know what, I'm just not going to do. Because it sounds like they're making conscious decisions. It sounds like your example is you made a conscious decision not to do things. You can hate me as long as you're not making a conscious decision to damage my game. I don't care whether you like me or not.
And I completely agree. But you're not going to be able to prove that, though, Terry. That's
maybe not. Maybe.
Well, you can't unless the referee comes out and said, I didn't give that decision because I hate him, which they're not going to do because that'll be the end of the career. You're not going to be able to prove it. David Coote's done this. I wonder how much more stuff said behind the scenes. Well, that's why I agree with what you're saying about get an independent regulator in. I'm all good for that, but like, this guy's an idiot, David Coote. There's probably not going to be that many referees who are slagging people off on camera.
You could be right.